What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the Changeup World Series wrap up, if you will, here on the network with myself and, of course, my co-host, as always, Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at bwinner12. Bryanna, how you doing today?
I'm very happy with this outcome.
Yes, this is a podcast. We're going to go as long as possible without naming the team that fell short in the World Series and give all the credit to the Atlanta Braves. Like I said, unless you're a fan of that other team and you're just kind of a neutral, I couldn't imagine you were rooting against the Braves in this situation. But yes, the World Series done and dusted. And it was really probably the best we could have hoped for. It was, looking for a bit. It was going to be a Dodger Houston. Oh, no, I didn't say the team name. A Dodger other team World Series, and we're going to have to choose between those two. Didn't become the case, and then obviously the right team won in the Atlanta Braves, winning in six. Couple things to go over. Obviously, Jorge Soler wins World Series MVP. The Braves become the first team ever to acquire both the LCS and World Series MVP in midseason, as of course they got Soler and Eddie Rosario around the trade deadline. Obviously, Braves win their first World Series since 1995. Another thing that I saw that was very interesting, another year in which we see a visiting team celebrate on the road. It hasn't been since 2013, since we saw the Red Sox win at Fenway, since we've seen a home team win at home. And the other is Freddie Freeman, Carlos Correa. Both of those two possibly could have played their final games. I think Carlos Correa, it is essentially decided he will enter free agency and probably will not return. Freddie Freeman, I expect to see Freddie Freeman back in Atlanta. But Bryanna, what were your thoughts on a 6-game World Series that, I mean, I'll be honest, the games, besides the back-to-back home runs, I think that was game 4, it wasn't, the games weren't terribly dramatic. They were kind of blowouts. Never really in doubt going into the ninth, except for that game 4. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the World Series in which the Braves take down the cheaters?
Well, you were right about the amount of games.
Yes.
I said 7. It could have gone 7 if the Braves did not shut out the other team, which I was coming back that day and I'm like, okay, good. The Braves should win this game. There's no way they can mess this up that bad. So, yeah. I mean, you don't necessarily need the home runs. It's more defense and pitching that you need. Yes, you need offense, but you're not going to win if you can't play defense. And it was a defensive showdown for the majority of this series, which is what you want to see.
Yeah. And
you don't want it to be like a blowout when it's like the Diamondbacks or the Rockies or the Orioles or the Rangers. I'm just naming teams that were on that lost about 100 games. So don't mind me.
Yeah. Well, and there are a lot of teams in Major League Baseball. I think I saw 12 teams in Major League Baseball actually had more wins than the Braves. That doesn't matter. The Braves got it done when it mattered, and yeah, the defense was on par. I think the pitching for the Braves, their game 6 was their game 7, if you will. I don't think they would have been able to. You had Ian Anderson was the expected starter for a game 7 if necessary. He would have been going on short rest. You had some bullpen issues, and I'll tell you what, I think the whole game kind of turned in the first inning. Bottom of the first, I forget who was running down to first base, but he steps on Max Fried's ankle. And watching that, knowing you're wearing metal cleats, that's Max Fried's drive ankle. I think it was his left ankle. And they actually ended up calling the guy safe, even though he never touched the bag, which was odd. Braves did not challenge. It ended up being first and second, nobody out in the bottom of the first. You're thinking, Max Fried is struggling again. And he ends up getting the next 3 guys out. Nothing comes across, obviously. And then he settles in, obviously the huge huge 3-run home run from Jorge Soler that I still don't think has landed. That might have been one of the longest home runs I've ever seen, especially in Houston. But for the Braves, obviously, they got it done with the pitching, especially that bullpen. And they didn't need it too much in game 6. Max Fried went 6 solid innings, probably all you could ask from him. Kind of a nice bounce back. He had 2 kind of struggling starts prior to that. But I felt like for the Braves, they looked at game 7 as, game 6 as their game 7. They did not probably have a ton of confidence going into a game 7. They get the job done. Congratulations to that fan base. One of my best friends is a diehard, and when I say diehard, I mean diehard Braves fan. And I always kind of give him a little slack because he's always so positive, no matter how bad the Braves are, no matter what's going on. Even when they were struggling this year, he was telling me they're still going to win the World Series, and I laughed at him. And do I think he believed it at the time? Probably not. But you know what? Congratulations to him, and I'll pat myself on the back. In the last 2 weeks, I've hit the Houston 10-1 to win the pennant, and I hit the Braves 10-1 to win the World Series. Now, if I would have put a $10 bet on in June when the Braves were 50-1, not 10-1, but that's gambling for you. So I'll take my money and run. But it was a good World Series. It was a good season. But what else you got for us?
Did you hear about the guy that had put money down that the Braves were going to win in game 6 and he won like 20 something million dollars?
Yeah.
I saw that on TikTok and I'm like, and I saw it after the win and I'm like, oh, he's about to get paid.
Yep. That's a nice way to make money watching sports there. And of course there was Trevor Plouffe, who, he works for John Boy Media. He's a former Major League Baseball player. He tweeted out in March, I believe it was March 31st, maybe right before the opening day. He tweeted, "Braves beat the Astros in 6 games." That is,
you just said it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't think Plouffe won money. I don't think he just tweeted
You just said the team's name.
Oh, I did it. Well, I didn't think. I knew you were going to be okay. I knew I wasn't going to be okay. I was going to. I'm going to quote Trevor Plouffe though, so I don't think that he actually technically said it. I'm just the parakeet. I'm just the parrot, parroting it over. So I'll take a little bit of the blame. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think the Braves have a legitimate shot next year to repeat as world champions?
I mean, if you look at the amount of players that are going into free agency, there's a chance, but it's going to depend on who they get, pretty much. Because there's like 160, I think, players going into free agency, including Freeman and a few other Braves and cheaters.
You almost.
Hey, at least it's not the Washington team where you guys just
went
off and I only said it one time.
We filled that.
Where's the imaginary money jar?
You know what? I think whoever was holding on to it put it towards some beers.
It wasn't me.
Names, but
no, I probably should have held it.
Yeah, it's a very tough situation. Obviously, there's so much in the air. So many question marks. We're not even into free agency, like you said. The Braves are going to have 3 or 4 or 5 days to try and sit down with Freddie Freeman, get something figured out. And then, like I said, I don't see Freddie Freeman going anywhere, assuming the Braves want him, and will put the money that is adequate for him. I think it might be more to do with who leaves the Dodgers. The Dodgers have a lot of players on contract or out of contract. I should say, Corey Seager, more than likely not returning. Max Scherzer, more than likely not returning. Clayton Kershaw, will he even play? Can he even pitch anymore? A lot of question marks there for and I think Chris Taylor's a free agent as well. So a lot of question marks for the Dodgers. Hate to bring them up in a podcast where they weren't even involved, but I really do believe that if the Dodgers get 4 or 5 of those guys back and then do what the Dodgers do in terms of maybe even bring another player in, they have to still be considered the favorite. I believe they still have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, even if they lose Kershaw and Scherzer, and then the Bauer situation figures, he disappears. But they still have a hell of a lineup. Mookie Betts is where he is. Cody Bellinger struggles, but he can always go off. So the Dodgers definitely have to keep an eye on them. And I wouldn't sleep on the Red Sox. Obviously, they weren't a team that could be terribly contended with, but they were a couple wins away from possibly taking down the cheaters in the ALCS. So the World Series wrapped up. Obviously, at this point now, it's the long off season. It will probably be a very long off season with the impending labor stoppage over all of our heads. December 1st, I think it's November 30th at 11:59 and 59 seconds Eastern time is when the labor deal does end. So a holdout or a strike could be possibly on the docket, but either way, best case scenario, we still have a long 5 months ahead of us waiting for baseball to get started up again. But we'll be here for you through all of that. Other news, someone who won't be here next year, won't be playing baseball next year, at least at the major league level, is Buster Posey. He is expected to announce his retirement today. We are recording Thursday, November 4th. Expected to announce his retirement for a guy. I think the only question for him is, will he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? In my mind, he is definitely a Hall of Famer. This is a guy who won Rookie of the Year, won MVP, not to mention 3 World Series titles, all as a catcher. He hit over 300 for his career. He is a career giant. I expect his number to be retired as soon as possible. Interesting part of this is earlier this month, or earlier last month, the Giants actually picked up Buster Posey's option for $22 million. And so he was going to get paid next year. He has decided, it's time to hang him up. Obviously, as a catcher, you don't want to put in another 140 games behind the plate if you're not really there to do it. So congratulations to Buster Posey, a hell of a career. I'm not a Giants fan. I don't really wish the Giants too much good unless they're playing the Dodgers. But for Buster Posey, I don't know how you cannot like this guy. I remember watching him at Florida State as a collegiate athlete, and I think he was the #1 overall pick. And a hell of a career. I believe he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There are probably some sports writers who, will have differing opinions. I don't have a vote, so, I can't die on that cross for him. But I expect him in the very, first 2 years, he should be in Cooperstown. But congratulations to Buster Posey. A long storied career. Bryanna, what are your thoughts?
I mean, he's gone through so much. He won a World Series. He's had horrible injuries like the collision at home plate, which nobody wanted to see, but it happens. And even, I forgot who it was that rammed into him, but even he was like, I did not want that to happen. Dude, slide next time. It wouldn't have happened if you slid. So, I mean, he's been banged up and obviously catchers do get banged up, especially in those plays at home. So maybe this is also like, he doesn't want to get injured anymore. He doesn't want to maybe be injured as bad as he was. What was it, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah. Well,
Something
they changed that rule just for that collision. There's that rule then came into play in terms of, you need to give a lane, and then the batters, it's no longer, because, before that it was, hey, at some point your goal as a runner is to knock the ball out of the catcher's glove. If he's already got it and he's standing on home plate, it's time to play NFL linebacker. That's not the case anymore, unfortunately. As you said, Buster Posey kind of paid the price for that, missing considerable time. And I agree with you. I think the if he was a full-time first baseman or, a second baseman or something like that, I think he could probably not tough it out. I'm not going to say it like that, but he would probably give it another go, make another, nice chunk of change for his family. But, he's not going to miss any dinners. He'll do whatever he wants from here on out. If he wants to get into coaching, if he wants to get into the front office, if he wants to get into the media side of things, or if he just wants to, be Buster Posey and give clinics or do this or that and kind of fade off into the sunset, he can do that as well. I do also think that the impending labor stoppage does have something to do with this. I think, for us, it's tough because we might have to wait an extra month or two while these guys get it figured out. But for the players, it's not easy because when you do a labor stoppage, there are going to be a lot of people who aren't happy with you, whether you like it or not. There are going to be a lot of fans, a lot of people who believe that you need to just shut up and play no matter what, blah, blah, blah. And for Buster Posey, I think possibly for him, he doesn't want to deal with that. He wants to, like I said, fade off into the sunset, enjoy really a fantastic season. Obviously, they didn't make the World Series, but one of the best seasons he's had as a Giant personally. And now, once again, the Giants didn't win the World Series, but as far as I know, I believe this is the most wins the Giants have had, even more than their World Series run. So, a fantastic way to end for Buster Posey. Congratulations to him, a fantastic career. And like I said, someone that will be have his number retired in San Francisco and be in Cooperstown very soon, I believe. Once he waits his 5 years after retirement, I would expect him to be a first ballot, possibly have to wait an extra year, but should not have to wait any longer than that. But Bryanna, unfortunately, we're going to drop it to something a little more, sad. And it's just an update on the situation, the Eric K situation. We've been kind of covering that. It's stemming from the Tyler Skaggs death a few years back. But Bryanna, what you got for us on the Eric K hearing and what's going on there?
So Eric K's team decided that they needed more time to prepare for the prosecutor's expanded charges. The prosecution added an oxy charge, so they wanted more time to prepare for that. And that was 6 days before the trial was set to begin, and the judge has officially agreed to it. So now the defense is going to have, I don't know how long this delay is going to be. So, he's now scheduled to face trial January 24th.
Yeah, so that's another 2 months, 2.5 months of waiting for the Skaggs family, for the people who are following that, and ultimately for Eric K to face justice for what he did, what he didn't do, or what he allowed to happen. In those situations, these big time court cases have a somewhat tendency to kind of, we're going on almost 2 years now since his passing, I believe.
It was in 2019, so
okay,
by January it'll be almost 3 years.
3 years, and I know the charges came down maybe last year at some point, so it hasn't been immediate from this, but this is obviously taken a while, and that's fine. There's a lot of moving parts here, and the prosecution, or excuse me, the defense needs to obviously figure out a way to fight this other charge. And I want to say, let's let justice prevail, blah blah blah. But if you've heard about the case, if you've read up about the case, it's hard not to find Mr. K culpable.
It's an ugly case.
It is. It's an ugly situation. It's when you have obviously, just because they're an athlete, I don't think they get extra sympathy, but we have someone who's in the limelight. You don't necessarily expect something like that, maybe in the music industry, or even in the film industry. Look, drugs are a little more prevalent, at least that I know of. That's probably a naive way to think about it, but you kind of hear of overdoses and things like that more prevalent in that area of entertainment. Not so much the athletic side, especially someone like Tyler Skaggs, who was up and coming. And for that whole franchise, I feel like I go back to the Nick Adenhart situation when that young pitcher was struck and killed in a DUI accident. A lot of sadness in that organization, but at this point now it's about getting justice for the family and everyone really affected by Eric K. And once again, this isn't just Eric K. This was more people, but he's the one who's going to stand trial for it, and that will begin in January. And of course, when that gets rolling and we get a little more concrete stuff, we will have an update on that. But final thing we will be talking about is the Padres hiring Bob Melvin. Really one of the more surprising managerial hires of the entire offseason, maybe of my life, to be honest. I expected the managerial candidacy to go a little haywire, and it did for a little bit. We heard a lot of talk of Luis Rojas, Mike Schilt, guys who have been there, yes, but they literally just got fired, weeks ago. And then we heard about Ozzie Guillen. Ozzie Guillen, like, I want some fire in that clubhouse, but I don't know if bringing a flamethrower is the fire that I exactly want. Bob Melvin, Despite, being still under contract with Oakland, he asked for permission to leave. They gave it to him. He heads to San Diego. And for me, this is a guy that is a home run hire. When the season ended or when we talked about Jace Tingler being fired, I had brought up Bob Melvin's name. And to be honest, it was a pipe dream. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it would ever happen for a multitude of reasons. I didn't think Oakland would let him go. And I didn't know if Bob Melvin wanted to kind of walk into this dysfunction that he has here, or that we have here in San Diego with the Padres. But at the end of the day, he looked at the situation. You're going to get it. Really, you could go anywhere else in baseball, get a better ballpark to manage in. The Coliseum is, a garbage dump. Uh, with all due respect, but it's a dump. It's a dump in Oakland that isn't really a major league capable stadium. Petco Park is a top 5, top 10 stadium. He even made quotes about it. That they came to San Diego on a Tuesday night and there were 40,000 people there. He was excited to get into that type of atmosphere, and his hiring is only going to drive more excitement, more expectations. And at the end of the day, this is the first time since, I can remember, I might have to go all the way back to Jack McKeon, that the Padres have hired a manager with a track record. Just a track record, not a good track record, which Bob Melvin has a good track record, but just a track record. So many times we've seen them pick up guys like Bud Black, who I actually really like and has turned into a very good manager. But, he was getting growing pains out with us. Andy Green, same thing. Looks like a good bench coach, may turn into be a good manager if he gets another shot. But for us, not so much. Jace Tingler, I don't think will ever be a good manager, but he wasn't a manager before. So once again, the Padres go out, they get someone who has a reputation and knows how to get it done. This is crazy, but Bob Melvin actually has more playoff appearances as a manager than the Padres have as a franchise. Bob Melvin has been managing since 2003. The Padres have been playing baseball since 1969. All right, so just think about that. So Bob Melvin, and once again, what he did in Seattle and Arizona and Oakland. Seattle, he was there for, he came in as an interim manager in 03. He came in 03, made the playoffs, and then the next year they struggled mightily. He was let go. He then ended up in Arizona, where he actually in 2007 led them to the National League Championship Series, and then ended up, struggling from there, being let go. Ended up in Oakland, where he ended up being one of the winningest managers in Oakland, a history, and really turn that thing around. So I think for the Padres, getting Bob Melvin, the only knock I guess you could have on the guy is he's never been to a World Series as a manager. But once again, we're talking about a situation where the last 3 or 4 managers that I've had literally have never even been a manager. So I'll take a guy like Bob Melvin, who's been there, done that, and I really expect a big turnaround in not only the clubhouse, but also the play on the field. I think he's going to hold guys accountable. He's not going to be afraid to kind of tell Tatis or tell Machado or tell Hosmer or tell Will Myers or anybody else for that matter that they need to step their game up, because I don't think Jace Tingler had the cojones to do that. I think Bob Melvin does, and I can't wait, honestly, to get this season rolling. And I know, we're only 2 days removed from the end of the season, but, that's a baseball fan for you, always looking ahead. I think we're 148 days away from opening day, as I put up air quotes, the hopeful opening day. But it's going to be fun here in San Diego with the new manager and someone that we can hopefully rely on to get us at the very least, into the playoffs and start moving in the right direction, and hopefully here in the next 2 or 3 years. Enjoy what the Braves fans and team enjoyed just a couple days ago. But Bryanna, that's all we got. You got any final thoughts? Anything you want to add to that, or anything you got?
I don't have anything else. I was just letting you speak your piece.
Yeah, any final thoughts?
No, hopefully Ohtani can get MVP. I know those are going to come out soon.
Yeah, I believe next week or the week after, we'll be kind of giving our award picks, and then take a little hiatus during the off season. But yeah, we'll get our award picks in, and if anybody, once again, if anybody gives Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a first place vote, I think their vote should be taken away from here on out. And that's not a knock towards Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Fantastic. But that voter needs to reread the dictionary and figure out what valuable actually means, because nobody in the history of baseball, besides maybe Babe Ruth, has been more valuable than Shohei Ohtani. And I know Bryanna. I'll echo what Bryanna has said throughout. Let's get this team into the playoffs next year. Let's have a good offseason, Angels. Go out.
Healthy.
Yes, healthy. Go out. Joe Kelly's option has not been picked up by the Dodgers. Go pick up Joe Kelly to shore up that bullpen. Go pick up Max Scherzer to get a nice arm in that rotation, somebody who's going to hold guys accountable. Spend some money on some pitching that isn't named Jose Quintana, please. For not only this podcast, but for all of baseball, because we all want to see Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, at the very least, play postseason baseball. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Changeup here on the Off the Bench podcast, First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.